I knew what you were waiting on. Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, 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 welcome. Indeed, good morning, everybody, and welcome here. If it is your first time here, then it is even more welcome. And if it is your second, third, fourth, fifth, I don't remember how often we've been doing this yet, but always welcome. Larry and I just talked before that this is the highlight for me of the week. This is where we really soar. This is what we really enjoy. This is what we really are about. This is what we really get up for in the morning.
Yes.
And what moves us and motivates us. And so we're absolutely delighted to be with you on this Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, evening. For some, it's so early that it's still in the night, and I'm already heading into the evening. So that's so amazing that we are so spread out in different time zones. And it all come together here as what we call a lion family, releasing the lion. So thank you for being here. We always start with a little bit of an overview of... So let me get this going.
By the way, and just when Theo starts the overview, before we get into what we're going to be discussing today, we're going to show you a short clip from this man, Tony Bazant, who is considered the #1 expert in the world on how the brain works. I don't know that he is, but he's way up there if he's not. But we're going to let you hear just a little clip from him, and we can point you where you can go listen to. He has 2 different lectures that are on YouTube that would be good to listen to. But anyway, you ready, Thea?
I'm ready.
Okay, have a go.
Okie dokie. You can see my screen, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So this is where we start every time, with the most positive thing that we can think of, genuine hope in our hearts, and hope that is new every morning, that there is a new sunrise every morning. How wonderful is that? And it's the same sunrise in our heart every morning, new energy. Ancient Hebrew and nature, our source and our model. We only have 2 sources, ancient Hebrew and nature. We do not have any other. They're a source and our model. And they both reveal our lost treasure. And that treasure is that there is a lion genius inside you, locked in a cage, deep in your heart. And it is time to turn it loose. One of the things that is important to us to say up front, let's agree with the Lion's Covenant. Everybody here is free to disagree with everything we say. We're not here to convince you. We're not here to tell you what to think or what to believe. You're free to disagree with everything we say, so that we are free to say everything we want to say. And we only ask you to be open, to set aside everything that you know, just for these 2 hours. Set aside everything that you know and be open. And maybe you'll hear something new that will ring true to you and can be life-changing. The ox left, the lion right. The heart of the wise is to the right. The heart of the fool is to the left. King Solomon, this is kind of our central message of the rediscovery of the heart.
Let me just stop you a minute.
Yes.
Go back for just a minute. Okay, go back.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody to think about that for just a minute. Those are words on a page. The question is, are they true?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are true, it changes everything. Because we live in a left brain world. And is it true the heart of the fool is to the left? Is it true the heart of the wise is to the right? Is that true? Well, this is King Solomon, inspired King Solomon. So I read this and was stunned when I read this. I'd read it for years and didn't slow down because I didn't know what it meant. Just words on a page. The first time I knew what it meant, I said, uh-oh, this is a big deal. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So the lion and the ox, they have different point of views. They have different roles. Both roles are essential for peak performance. They only have to be in the right order. And I'm going to, so this one is important. It is, the lion is in the lead and the ox must submit to the lion, must submit to the lion. But until the ox engages, the lion's vision is unfulfilled. So we absolutely, both roles are essential. So a quick overview of what we did last week. We have a wrong view of the imagination because it has only two limited uses. A negative, this is not real, this is just your imagination, and the positive for the creative process. Now they are both true, but it is too limited because not real and creative images is only the conscious part of that, and everything else is is that whole part under the surface, all life issues of life. So the image maker is the right view of the imagination, and it much more describes the function of what it really does. It makes images, it forms, it shapes images, and that is how the heart functions. The imagination is physiological, not psychological. Okay, there's from the heart, there's rays of light projected on the heart, and that moves us in every possible way. The cell's brain is in the membrane. Okay, this is the biology of belief. That is how everything works, even on the cell level. It is what we think and feel and believe is influencing what happens inside the cell. And the heart is in the membrane of trillions of cells throughout the body. That is why we say the heart is everywhere. It is no place at all. The control panel source code decides how we feel about life. Whatever the current event is happening, it goes straight to the heart. It looks therefore, what do I already know about this? What I have already experienced about it? And that is going, and how do I feel about it? What do I believe about it? And that is going always to decide how I'm going to react or respond. So this is a direct impact on health and healing, and we're specifically will be going into greater detail for that today. So this is what the heart does: sharing, storing, transferring information through 1,000 trillion synapses. This is incredibly equipment that we have, incredibly storage capacity that is inside us. Imagination and intellect are not hardwired. Are your movies real or false? And do they paralyze and do they inspire? What are the images that motivate us inside in our hearts? Our heart makes decisions automatically and instantaneously. Depends on what is going on here. Not just what is going out here, what is going in here. So when the heart and the head conflict, the heart wins every time. We talked about the Wizard of Oz. Where is Toto when we need him? Why the Wizard of Oz? We love the Wizard of Oz because it is so beautiful, a depiction of what the ox is all about. You see, our bodies and souls live in the immediate exterior present, but our hearts and spirits live in the continual interior now. Unconscious, subconscious does not exist because the heart never sleeps. Get this, unconscious, subconscious does not exist. The heart never sleeps. The heart is always conscious. It is only the left brain ox that is not conscious of what the heart is conscious of. The left brain ox can only be conscious of one thing at a time. And it believes that its current conscious thought is the whole. It believes that what he has thought is all that is known and all that needs to be said. The conscious ox is not aware of what it is not conscious of. And it is incredibly important. We talked about the projection screens are everywhere, except scientists cannot find yours. It is invisible. Hard images on our interior screen interpret what external data means. The question is, who wrote our life's screenplay? How do we get free to direct our own script? Well, the first step to freedom is recognizing that we are not free and that we are bound by the past. Personal awareness is a God-given ability to become aware of our thoughts in order to see the images that control our hearts. There are really no new doors. The real secret is the rediscovery of the heart. If we learn what the heart is, where it is, how to get there, we can know freedom from the past. We can know how to be real and how to experience peak performance. The image maker is the only door out of the house of our confinement. And your caged lion has been waiting your entire life to be set free. So that is what we hear about. Larry?
Okay, why don't you go find Bazant? Let me just say a little bit about it's when Thea says that we have two sources. Our sources are ancient Hebrew and our sources are nature. That does not mean that we're not readers, but that means that everything we read gets checked out by, if you do not have an authoritative source, if there is not an authoritative source anywhere, then it's absurd to spend time reading, because we're just listening to one person's opinion, and then we're listening to another person's opinion, and then we're listening to another person's opinion, and who's right? Who's right? When we get into discussions about these kind of issues, one of the things I constantly ask people, tell me what you've been reading, because you know what I've discovered about people? They don't believe what they believe because they come to their own conclusions on it. They believe what they believe because of what they've been taught. The vast majority of people believe what they believe because of what they've been taught to believe, not because they themselves have sought it out, dug for it, asked for it, and looked for what are the absolutes. There has to be an absolute source. So we see absolute source. We'll explain it in detail. Our absolute source is ancient Hebrew. Our absolute proof is everything in nature, and there's zero conflict between the two. So we check out every other book on the basis of those two things. This is Tony Bazant's #1 work, mind mapping. He developed mind mapping. He developed mind mapping as an absolute brilliant guy who was in Cambridge University, and he was having trouble in school because they were giving him so much work, he's having trouble memorizing it. So he goes to the library and he asks the librarian where there is a book, Cambridge University, where there's a book on how the brain works. They didn't have one. So he set out on a search, and he ended up saying, well, I've discovered how the brain works. And in it, he talks in great detail and how he learned to do mind maps and to teach people how to do mind maps. And he called it what real authentic thinking is all about. So we're going to watch, there's a lecture. We're just going to listen just a little piece of it, but let's do that. And then we'll hop right in where we want to go here this morning. But this authenticates. It's always good when you're seeing something that has not primarily been taught. Okay, Einstein said it, how'd he say? The imagination is more important than knowledge. Oswald Chambers said it, how'd he say it? The imagination is the greatest gift God has given us. But both of those people's words have been ignored because it's not been connected to, wait a minute, that's what the heart is and how the heart works. So Bazant's going to say brain, and he doesn't know that he's talking about heart, but he is.
He is.
So let's look at how intelligence itself actually works. I'm going to ask you to imagine that you are a piece of equipment. You're a supercomputer. And I'm going to give you a piece of data, and I want you to check, what does your brain do? How long does it take to access it? What does the brain give it? And are there any colors or associations related to it? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Piece of data I want you to access is mango. Okay. Did you get, well, first of all, how long did it take you to access it? Yeah. And all of you are doing, what does that mean? That means instantaneous, microsecond, phenomenal. No supercomputer can do that from your infinite database. So if you work out how we do that, you'll get a Nobel Prize. And you'll get it just like that. So did you get a nice little MANGO printout? And all your heads going no. What did you get? A picture. How many of you got a picture or an image with colors and associations? Everybody. And I've done field surveys around the world. It's everybody. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the human race. Because this is how our brains actually work. Image. That could be anything, couldn't it? It could be your mum. It could be a mango. It could be an insect. Anything, the way the brain works. With radiant associations, colors, multiple sensories, linking out. So the two key words for which the brain works are this and this. Now, what do you think my personal main language is? Quickly. English, English, English. What's your personal language?
French.
French. English, Pakistani, lots of different languages. No, no. This is the human language. The human language is imagination and multiple sensory associations. That's the way we all speak. Prime. The other languages, verbal, are subroutine. Important, second routine. And that is the genesis of all creativity, all thinking, and that's how mind maps are generated as well.
So what did he discover? He discovered that the language of the heart's images, and he's changed the world where he could impact because of it. Now, he doesn't take it nearly the depth that ancient Hebrew takes it. He doesn't take it into, wait a minute, it's everything you do. He doesn't take it into, you're being controlled by the images of the past. He doesn't do any of that. He's about teaching you how to learn using your image maker to learn new data, new information to be creative. That's wonderful. But what I need to know is, how does the image maker affect my life and control my life? Because it does. And who wrote the script for my life? Who wrote the movies for my life? I love the fact that Mike Flynn, when Mike is talking to tell us kind of the history of how he got to where he plays, he talks about being the captain of his football team on a team that was a great team. And before the season ever got underway, that he got into a fight. And then he says something that's really, really important that I know that most people are not picking up on what he's saying. He said, it wasn't my first rodeo, which means what? Mike had been taught as a child and as a boy growing up to be a fighter. That paradigm inside had to change before Mike stopped getting into trouble fighting. Okay, and he got kicked out of school for fighting, but he says it wasn't my first rodeo. What did he say? He just said, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it come all the issues of life. Now, why did you get in a fight? Because two subordinates to you that are supposed to be listening to you didn't, and you got into conflict. It wasn't over what was happening there. It was over what happened in the past that put him in a condition that if you resist me at this level, we're going to fight. Okay? So every place we turn. If I could have every one of the 182 of us that are sitting here, it wouldn't take any time at all to find out why you do what you do. It's been the number one question that I've asked in my life. Why do men do what they do? Why? And I found the answer because of the previous programming in the heart. It's what's in the heart that determines. Okay, so today we're going to look at some new material, and in doing this, we're going to talk about religious prisons. Remember, we talked about this whole thing is about the lion has been held in a prison, in a cage by the oxen for years. So we're going to talk about religious prisons and why religion does not work. And the answer is because the soul cannot receive from the spirit. Your intellect cannot receive from the spirit. It's a completely foreign language to the intellect. So let's see what takes place. Nowhere has the lost revelation of the heart been more deadly than in our religious institutions. Let's just say that the soul has no capacity to reproduce the things of the spirit. The enormous storage capacity of our heart can never be tapped by input that begins and ends in the outer realm. Our massive heart receiver was designed first and foremost for fellowship with the mentor, the father of our spirits. Our spiritual poverty results from the fact that the vast majority of all programming, encoding, and images of our hearts have come from our outer senses. Religious leaders and teachers cannot impart what they're not experiencing. The so-called New Age movement's not new at all. The search for spiritual enlightenment began when the light went out. And restoration will never come from feeding from the tree that produced the problem. Religious institutions have historically elevated the soul's intellect to the highest level of counterfeit with spiritual words that are devoid of the life of the spirit. Most have little or no awareness of Solomon's profound declaration: the heart of the wise is to the right, the heart of the fool is to the left. That intellectual truth is lifeless. I hope everybody's hearing this. Intellectual truth is lifeless. The best example in the lion family of what happens when a lifetime left brain religious ox loses its domination over the right brain lion is the director of the Spanish edition of the Rediscover of the Heart, Jim Lewis. Jim Lewis' resume should make religious leaders everywhere suspicious of how much their lives are controlled by left brain ox concepts rather than right brain lion realities. Oh, grab that word realities. We're going to look at something in just a minute. Magna cum laude graduate of Bible College, MA in Bible Studies, graduate assistant to internationally renowned religious professor, faculty member of 5 Biblical Institute, a career radio and TV Bible teacher, Trinity Broadcast, Spanish broadcaster first, executive director of an urban ministry with an annual budget that could reach over $20 million, press and media personality wherever he's worked. You get the picture. Jim has been a high-profile career religious institute leader. Now, listen carefully to what Jim has to say. After 40 years of nonstop ministry, I was burned out, in anger and frustrated, and walked out of a flourishing ministry. I was a physician who needed healing. When I heard Dr. Alex Lloyd, the author of the Healing Code, recommend the work of Larry Napier, his mentor for 25 years, above his own writings, that's all the endorsement I needed to enroll in the Rediscover the Heart Institute. I had no idea what a life-changing decision I'd made. Over the 68 years of my life and my 4 decades in ministry, I have been blessed to have some really great people influence my life. However, I can truly say, Larry, I wish you'd been reading this. I didn't remember my name was in here, sorry. I can truly say Larry Napier has had and is having by far the greatest impact. I've never met anyone. You want to pick up?
I was thinking about that.
Why don't you pick up? This is hard for me.
I have never met anyone like Larry. And I was just thinking that today. I have truly, with the hand on my heart, everywhere the heart is, I have never met anyone like Larry, but so does Jim. I've told him repeatedly that our religious institutions everywhere desperately need what he has to give. Larry is a rare sage, yet he is genuinely humble. He is exceedingly confident, yet challengingly vulnerable. His ability to see the message in scriptures I have been quoting accurately without revelation for years verifies over and over that Larry is the real deal. I followed Larry in the review of the syllabus. I was intrigued. I had definitely found help. It wasn't just good information. It was relational. It was spiritual. And it was healing. Rediscovery of the Heart is a lifelong learning experience set within the safety of a family of released lions. This is not a program you work. There is no formula. Change began to happen within me. I found my heart, and I discovered it is a good heart, and it is a healing heart. My life and ministry will never be the same. My understanding of spiritual truth is undergone a mega shift. My grasp of the heart insights that Larry has rediscovered is exhilarating, and I'm passionate about sharing what I'm experiencing with my family, my colleagues, and the whole world. I have found new hope, new strength, and new vision through Rediscovery of the Heart, and I'm barely scratching the surface. Hopefully, religious leaders will be open to Jim's experience. Left brain.
Yeah.
Let's just look at this before Larry continues. This is so important. This is difference. Left brain, small flat screen, two-dimensional, black and white pictures of life. It reduces everything, including people, to parts that can be seen, that can be analyzed objectively, and manipulated without feeling. Left brain believes words are reality and that concepts are genuine experiences.
So let's close by going back to the religious left brain ox that I've known best. Back to my 4 a.m. wake-up call. The intuitive awareness that I'd been instructed to study all the uses of heart in the ancient Hebrew script, where my 17 years of focused spiritual study was severely challenged. Fast forward 3 days and help me find Kim. It's time to share with my wife this world-changing revelation. I want you to watch this. Good. She's in the kitchen. Honey, I've just made an amazing discovery. It can change the world, I told her. We think in pictures and we don't know it. Do you see that puzzled look? It gets worse. What do you mean we don't know it? How else would you think? Now she's walking out of the room and I follow her with a rapid fire of left brain ox answers, verbally, logically, analytically, with concepts. As I pause, Kim replies, not me. I couldn't think of anything if I couldn't see it. Wow. So, right brain, three-dimensional movies, 360 degrees surround sound action. And it can touch, listen, it can touch all the history of our life. That should have an S on it. All the history of our lives as current events. Please hear, all the history of our lives as current events at the speed of light. It's the source of intuitive wisdom. It's rich in feeling that is often too deep for words. The left brain's not conscious of what it's not conscious of. Okay, so here we are. This is a few years ago, 31 years later, and I'm still need to learn more about what the exchange you just witnessed means. I knew then that the answer to 21 years of not being able to communicate was somehow hidden from me in Kim's words. So a teacher of cell psychology, a motivational self-improvement guru, I was a religious leader, a counselor, a left-brain wordsmith, winner of all of our debates. The rediscover of the lost language of the heart had just told a right-brain artist that we think in pictures and we don't know it. I just proven that all my knowledge demonstrated classic left-brain ox ignorance, blindness, and arrogance. It was good that this exchange took place before I ever said anything to anybody else. I would have been horrible if I'd gone out and started sharing this and my wife had not said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I couldn't think of anything if I couldn't think of pictures. Oh, so be careful, boy. No one knows all that they think they know. All right. All right, so here we go. Here's an application. Make it a new practice to catch how often we ignore the intuitive, this doesn't feel right. Or a thought to do something that we dismiss only to recognize that our ox rejected what the lion knew to do or submitted to the ox to express. This is so huge, folks. It's the very essence of what we watch with Toto. Yeah. And the Wizard of Oz. The ox controls the voice box. The voice box is in the soul body. Okay. So guess what the ox will do? The ox will try to cover what the heart knows. The ox will deny what the heart knows. Yes. The ox is absolutely not about to say I was wrong. It can't possibly say I was wrong. Its identity is based on being right. We'll see before we're through. If I'm not wrong more than 5 times a day, I've had a really good day. And when Thea first heard me say that, it just drove her up the wall. What's he talking? I mean, she could not get it. But before long, Thea could say, if I've not been wrong more than 5 times a day, I've had a good day. It's so liberating. Okay. So just catch yourself. This doesn't feel right. There's a huge warning signal from the heart. It's not right. Remember this book. This is an entire book written on that. Blink. An entire book, bestseller. And it's all about how to think without thinking. All he's saying is your heart does the real thinking. So you don't have to think. You pay attention to the thinker. That's what it's really all about. Okay. So before we go on, we're going on to a huge thing that I want Thea to pick up on, because this is a place, but we're going to start with looking at a video. And before you put that video on, Thea, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay. Before.
That was life happening.
Yeah, okay. As when we have, I got distracted, hold on. I want to introduce you to something. I want to tell you a story. Could you get this just off the screen? Let's go blank for a minute. Okay. I want to tell you the #1 example in my entire life of somebody that had discovered, and you understand when I tell you his story of how he discovered how to live from the heart, and how he discovered, to the greatest depth of anybody that I've ever known, the whole thing about the heart, and to take data from out here and see it turn into reality on the inside. So, and it fits here because this was a man that was an expert in religious prisons until he got put in prison. His name was Richard Wurmbrand. Richard Wurmbrand was a priest in Romania. And when the Russians came in and the communists took over, he opened his mouth in a big meeting where the Russians got all of the churches, all the leaders of the churches, over 1,200 in a room, to tell them how it was going to be. And he was one of the 3 leaders in the whole country. They asked him to come and speak. They thought he was going to endorse what they're saying, and he didn't endorse, and he went straight to prison. He had 7 years in prison. He got out for about a month, and he had 7 years more. Once he gets out, and he gets out because people in America hear about him, get some money together, and they get him to the States. And once he's here, he establishes something called Voice of the Martyrs. And that Kim and I have participated in that for years and years and years. And it's getting the word out and getting support to men who've been killed for what they believe, supporting their families, etc., all over the world. But I want you to hear what happens to him. And he had 7 years in prison. And at one point in time, he had over 3 years in solitary confinement. And this is a scene, him as an older man, once the wall came down, going back into the prison. And he's going to tell what happened to him in that prison. And I'm telling you, this is off the chart. Now, before I ever got to see this, Kim and I went to Oklahoma, where the office of Voice of the Martyrs, this was before he died and his wife died. And we had been there for 3 days, learning, just helping, that kind of thing. And there was a Sunday morning, and he was going to teach. And he couldn't stand for any lengthy period of time because they'd beat his feet so bad in prison that he couldn't handle it. He had stripes all over his back. He was called in to testify before Congress, told Congress how bad those things were. One of the senators challenged him and said, "Aren't you exaggerating?" He stood up and stripped to his waist and turned around and showed him his back. And shut that man's mouth so fast it wasn't funny. So he's sitting in the chair. I've gone to the bathroom. Everybody else is in there. They're singing some songs. And I see him sitting, and I've not had a chance to talk to him personally, alone. I went up. He was just still. And I got down on my knee beside him. And I said, "Richard, I need to ask you a question." This was 1985. And I'd been studying the heart for a little over a year. I said, "I need to ask you a question. How important was your imagination when you were in prison?" Instantly, his eyes filled with tears, and he couldn't talk. He whispered twice, "It was everything. It was everything." And I got up from there saying, okay, this helps me understand the things he wrote, because he wrote things that were so deep. But a few years ago, I found this video, and then I understood exactly what he meant. So let's watch this video, and you're going to see how important is the image maker, and when does it flourish at its fullest? What does it take to get there to be able to have it flourish at its fullest?
My whole night I passed walking to and through this cell. I didn't have shoes. Every night I began by meditating on the Word of God, the verses which I remembered by heart. I meditated so much until from meditation I arrived to seeing the scenes about which the Bible speaks. I really saw Abraham with his camels, and I saw Jesus surrounded by multitudes and preaching to them. I saw St. Paul traveling. I saw the angels about whom the Bible speaks. Everything became a reality to me.
There we go. Okay, that's big, big deal. Now, that's 3 years in solitary confinement. He said, I meditated until. Boy, he didn't say how long did he meditate. If you're in solitary confinement for 3 years, you got a lot of meditation time. He did not remotely say, I meditated, and the day after I started meditating, I began to see. And he didn't say after the first week I began to, and he didn't say after the first month I didn't, and he didn't say after the first year. He said, I meditated so much that it came that I saw. And everything that was in writing became reality to him, and he could see. And his heart got absolutely captured because he experienced Abraham with his camels. He experienced them because he saw them with his heart. That's as deep as I know any place. Now, we're going to go into one of the issues that we've been asked by a number of people is these different things that are going on. So they'll come in here and let's talk about one of these really, really important concepts.
Mm-hmm. Anxiety in the heart. Hebrew word da'ag, anxious, fearful. It is tormenting. Anxiety in the heart overwhelms it. Oh, but the Hebrew word shahah means literally to bow down. That is so much more powerful than being overwhelmed. It is so powerful that it causes me to bow down. Vital question. What images are we bowing down to? Remember that last week we talked about who wrote the movie scripts of our life and how do we become free to write our own script? Well, the first step to freedom is to recognize that we're not free, but that we're bound to the past. What images are we bowing down to? Since everything has to do with the heart, what does the heart have to do with health? Everything. All the issues of our lives has to include a physical life, which has its source from the life behind the veil that lies over the heart. Modern science, modern medicine, with its many marvels, remains light years away from the revelation of ancient Hebrew. However, the Center of Disease Control and leading research hospitals are making a significant turn by acknowledging that stress is the primary culprit in nearly all cases of sickness and disease. They just said the heart's images, and they don't know it. Ancient Hebrew says it all. Anxiety in the heart overwhelms it. Negative passion in the heart causes the bones to rot. Sorrow and wounds or pain in the heart breaks the spirit, and the broken spirit takes moisture out of the bones. The heart knows the soul's bitterness or anger. Those are just 4 examples out of the ancient Hebrew, what the heart and the issues of the heart, the images of the heart have to do with our physical health. So da'ag is anxiety. We have kina, negative passion. We have atzbet, pain, and we have mal'ah, bitterness. We're going to look at those 4 things. Ancient Hebrew declares that the soul life is in the blood. So where does the blood come from? From the marrow in the bones. So let's put it together. Da'ag, anxiety, fear, tension, the fearful, tormenting, stress in the heart overwhelms it. Shachan, the literal Hebrew meaning of its root, means bowing down for a great power. Okay? What is this great power that causes the heart to bow down? What are the images on the image maker that have such overwhelming power? as we see here, during formative years, all those things that are happening, the images that we're bowing down to. So what are the images on the image maker that have such overwhelming power that they cause us to bow down? What has such negative power? What negative energy source has the power to cause malfunction? The problem is stress. And not just the stress that we see over here, but it is stress that is already coded inside the heart. Because during formative years, millions of stress codes have been loaded in the heart. Or emergency pressure switch has been overloaded. The real problem is a virus in the source code of the master control panel. The source code in the heart decides how we feel about life, and it has a direct impact on health and healing. And I have this one here as a stunning proof. Do you want us to say something about this, Larry?
Sure.
I'm surprised to hear.
Alex and I were going to do a seminar together in 2010, and I had not updated him on some of the ongoing developments in a little bit of time. And I told him about this before we went into our meeting. And it was a huge breakthrough that was done by Dr. Emoto. And it was years of study about water. And as Mike has said, we're going to be talking a lot about water in the future with everything we're doing with this, okay? Because water is huge. It's more important than we've ever thought. But what he absolutely, Emoto is one of the people that proved that water has a memory. But it's been ignored because I hope everybody's getting this, because it impacts me, it impacts you, and you have to have a huge warning signal on the inside. If you get suspicious of your own heart, you get in a very healthy position. Why do you believe what you believe? And you can tenaciously hang on to what you believe and what you believe not be true at all. And if you're believing the lie, it produces the lie. It produces the death. You can't keep it from happening. That's the nature of a lie. Okay, so the whole scientific world basically has ignored what's happening with water. And the first man that really was a true scientist that started saying that water has a memory got absolutely blackballed. He was at the pinnacle in Europe of the scientific community until he started saying water has a memory, and they just blackballed it. But some men picked it up, and that's going on. So Emoto had done this, and he had just made this discovery. So I told Alex about it. So let me explain what happened to this. I told Alex that water had memories. And so Alex got 12 dozen fresh rosebuds, and he gave 10 of them to Hope. And then he took these 2 rosebuds and he had his son Harry take pictures. So he took a glass like this. It wasn't as big as this, one of those half glasses. Same amount of water from the same source. And he put his hands on the glass with water in it of one. And he went to the most negative memory and got it up present in his heart. He went there to that negative place for 1 minute, and he put the glass down, and he put above one of the flower rosebuds inside that glass. Waited a little bit, got the second glass, put his hands like this on it for 1 minute, and went to the happiest, most beautiful experience of his life. He went back there and experienced it for 1 minute. He did that sometime on Monday. This was a picture that was made on Friday before our seminar on Saturday. The one that had the negative energy released from him looking at that negative experience, that energy being released into the water, that rosebud had already fallen over and started decaying. Hope had 10. And guess what she had? She had the food that the florist gives to keep those rosebuds healthy longer. None of them were as healthy and as vibrant as the one that Alex had the positive energy in the water. Stunning proof. Now, what science is now telling us is that we're 70% water, but the true science is saying, no, we're 99% water because we've ignored all the water that's inside each cell. So water's huge, and we'll be talking a lot about that in the future. But anyway, go ahead, Thea.
So we can only just imagine if this is what a negative memory is doing to a rose in a glass of water that has been exposed to that negative memory for only 1 minute. What does it do to the cells of our body if we are focused on images of anxiety, worry, tension, and great fear that are encoded in the heart source code when they're triggered, when they occupy the image maker and take control? What happens is the heart bows down to the overwhelming power of these images. The second one, kina, it is envy, jealousy, it is a fear of loss. Well, the Hebrew says that negative passion, this kina, this envy, jealousy, fear of loss, this negative passion in the heart is decay to the bone. To decay, to rot as in eaten by worms. In the bones and in the bone marrow is where blood comes from. So when it means that it really decays, well, it turns poisonous. When real threat appears on the image maker of a heart, our bloodstream is flooded with chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. Dramatic changes occur as our physical bodies prepare for fight or flight. What a life-saving gift. Occasional temporary stress is absolutely essential for survival. The fight and flight mechanism is not a negative mechanism. It is very essential for survival. However, that is not the theme of these ancient Hebrew revelations. Stored, unhealed heart images, interpreting everything as a threat, produces the stress that attacks our health. Our bloodstream is not designed to process a constant barrage of emergency chemical messages telling all our physical systems to stop their normal functions. And it gets worse, since the heart is the organ of the spirit. Our next one, naka, broken, oppressed, smitten, grieved. In the ancient Hebrew teaches us, but a spirit broken continually withers the bones. And just imagine, just remember, inside the bones is the bone marrow, that is where the blood is being generated. It really says yavesh, to dry up, to wither. Marrow is produced in the bones, and the Hebrew describes moist bones as healthy bones, not dry bones. Pain in the heart crushes the spirit like an accident can drive the soul out of the body. Images of pain, grief, sadness, fear of loss on the image maker break the spirit. If the spirit is broken, it cannot give life to the soul, and the moisture content in the bones begin to dry up. In other words, the blood supply manufactured in the bones. If our blood is not healthy, we are not healthy. Bitterness, mara, results of continual fighting. The personal characteristics of hot temper, despondent, provoked, anguished. Imagine the results of all this activity in the bloodstream and all those stress chemicals and stress hormones being released and being flushed into the bloodstreams. And that is going to all the cells of our body. So this one, last but not least, the heart knows all of the soul's mara, the bitter, angry experiences, because the heart stores them all. Since we were one cell believer, remember, we covered that a couple of weeks ago, we all started as one cell. And since we were a one cell believer until now, every unhealed bitter experience can be impacting our soul life, our present active tense, in a very stressful way. Health requires blinding negative images with joyful images of truth and love. Healing lives demand healing hearts. So the heart knows its soul's bitterness. As the ancient Hebrew reveals, the soul is in the blood. The heart knows the soul's bitterness. The millions of stress codes that have been stored in the heart during our formative years. Those are the triggers. The application, anxiety in the heart. Stress is a heart issue. We say everything is a heart issue because, as King Solomon says, all the issues of life come from the heart. That is why we have to watch over our heart with all diligence. Stress is a heart issue. Health is a heart issue. External remedies that only address the soul-body manifestation of stress that originates behind the external veil can never touch the source of the problem. It is cosmetic. Meditate on this page until you discover yourself accepting it as true. If that happens, you will become like King David, who said meditating on the father mentor's instructions gave him more authentic insight than all his intellectual teachers. Once there, we will stop looking for the solution to health issues in all the wrong places. Be thankful for all the modern medical tools that can address soul-body manifestations. We're not against that. We're thankful for it. They are wonderful indeed. Just know that they're limited because they do not go behind the veil. Most real solutions can only be found in the spirit heart realm.
Wow. Now, what you just heard from what Thea just showed is exactly what Mike's talking about when he said first rodeo. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if Mike were in here, he could talk about the experience or the experiences where this first started. Because once we get open to it, there's always the first event. That's what fractal is, the first formula, the first event. And then all the others just get hopped on top of it, and it intensifies more neurons in the brain. Every single time that an experience of the past gets activated, it permeates more of the neurons in the brain, because the old places those pictures are don't take any time to store them. They've already got them. So when those images get activated, they fired through the synapses, and it heads right down to go and says, let's get more of it. Let's get more of it. And before long, we've got things that are so ingrained that they're automatic and instantaneous and wrong, because they've been repeated over and over and over and over and over and over. See? So let's go to some really good news. A rejoicing heart. Now we're going to look at the inner heart positive images. Laughter is the best medicine. It's often quoted. It's rarely believed. I want to talk about Norman Cousins for a minute. Norman Cousins survived a deadly disease by laughing his way to recovery. With vitamin C for his outer man and a massive daily dose of Marx Brother films for his inner man. Genuine laughter requires a happy heart. Heart images that produce real joy, authentic joy. When Cousins discovered that relief from his pain lasted for hours after his laughter therapy sessions, he laughed his way to health. This is an amazing story. Since Cousin's experience did not fit the economic interest of the treat the symptom drug center paradigm of Western medicine, its threat was buried in a left brain cemetery. Solomon knew better. Ancient Hebrew clearly declares that the inner heart is the source of physical health, with a special emphasis on the health preserving power and the healing energy of experiential joy. Source: the life of the body comes from a healthy, healing heart. Marpe, that's the Hebrew word for healthy or healing or curative. And marpe as a noun means a state of being. Continual health in the heart is continual healing to the body. Look at that. It's one thought. Marpe. Lev marpe, to heal. That's a healing heart. Isn't that amazing? A healing heart. Present active tense. One thought. It's just absolutely wonderful. The word healing, first, is rejoicing with a festive heart. And it produces a continual flow of healing, curative medicine, or as Solomon said, a festive heart actually heals and cures. Joy in the heart produces life-giving things released in the bloodstream instead of all the negative. So, Simeach, festive joy. This is huge. This is what the feast in Israel are like, particularly the feast in the fall. Sameach, festive joy, gleeful. A rejoicing heart produces a continual flow of good medicine. That's what the Hebrew says. If you just break it down and say, okay, what's this about? Words like tranquil, merry, or cheerful fall way short of the Hebrew root sameach meaning of festive joy, expressive merriment, sheer delight. Sameach is not present in words that claims, I'm happy. Say, oh, what's wrong with you? I'm happy. Sameach means uncontained rejoicing that is objectively recognized. They and I've enjoyed that we both have strange but quick sense of humor. Okay, so if you were to sit in here and hear some of the things we laugh at, you would say, what's wrong with these people? And we would say, what's wrong with you? Don't you see how funny this is? But it's a wonderful thing to be able to have laughter as an ongoing part of your day. And I mean laughter, I mean authentic laughter. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes we can't go on because we're laughing so hard, okay? And so that's a huge issue here. Sorry, I got to shut this phone down real quick. I hope everybody gets this. If you ever see a Simeach person, they don't have to tell you they're happy. Okay, I mean, it is really recognizable, okay? Joyful. A rejoicing heart produces a continual flow of good medicine. Can you imagine? That is actually the meaning of the Hebrew. A rejoicing heart produces a continual flow of good medicine. It's just incredible. So here's the word gaha or giha. It's medicine, to cure or to heal. Now watch this one. What's it mean? What's the word mean? To set free from guilt, pain, and disease. Wow. The Hebrew word gaha, to cure, to heal, or medicine, has three primary images: to actively heal or cure. Oh, and this is one that Thea and I love so much. We love going even deeper with this one. To shine so bright that it blinds. To see something that an image that is so bright that it just absolutely overwhelms whatever that dark image was, that black image, that you can't have that bright light shining and be seeing it, and at the same time seeing the black, scary, stressful image. It doesn't work that way. So it becomes really critical for all of us to say, what image are you looking at? What's the image behind the thought you're having? If you don't get there, you can't ever discover how to really get the heart healed. Can't happen, okay? To incline or draw towards, that's the third one. The results of these three words, these three actions, set free from guilt, pain, and disease. So here's how it happens. When the scene of the image maker focuses on scenes that are inherently producing joy, laughter, and rejoicing, healing is taking place. It's not that it will take place if you do that. It is taking place while you're doing that. It's back to like that, automatic and instantaneous. Wow. A real joyful image is like a bright light turned on in a dark room. The image that produces joy is so bright that it blinds the eyes of the heart. The heart can't see the image producing the stress. When an image that creates joy is on the screen, it draws the soul and body into its healthy state of being. It's the way it is. So, inner heart, positive images is the source of physical healing. Warning, laughter that comes from vulgar, crude humor does not heal, is not bright, and draws to nothing life-giving. Only laughter that comes from authentic joy holds the promise. Wow. This is so absolutely wonderful. So, happy heart is a healing heart. Now, there's an amazingly effective response system that we have that is built for health, for our immune system, for peak performance, and for relationships. All right. This is just so awesome to me. This is for those of you, I hope many of you recognize why I have been able to mentor PhDs in psychology if they're willing to listen. I've talked to some not willing to listen, but they're dealing with sukeology. It's extremely well named. Sukeology, soulology. And soulology will say, well, yeah, there's a subconscious and unconscious, and there's things that go on there. But talk to me, and let's talk about it some more. Instead of saying, wait a minute. The suke is what functions because of what's in the heart. It's not the other way around. So when we find what those issues are in the heart, when we find those images of the heart, then we know how that we can start the process of getting free. I just keep using Mike because I knew where we were coming on today when he said, I got in a fight, I got kicked out of school, and it wasn't my first rodeo. And I thought, boy, before Saturday's over, everybody's going to know what he means. It wasn't my first rodeo. Okay. Yeah. Over and over and over and over again. So Mike's heart had to get healed, or the rodeos would never stop. That would have been the last time he got kicked out of something. He would just go on through life getting kicked out of stuff and broken relationships and all this that couldn't keep from happening because the heart has to change or the results keep producing the same thing. So that's just really, really a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'd love to go back in here one more time to just help everybody. We've said this so many times, folks. Every time that Thea and I get to do this, we learn more.
Yes.
Every time. Why? Because more of the synapses in our own heart, more of our cells get the message that we're here talking about. Repetition, 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 repetition. And it is absolutely key. So many of you were not here in some of the early sessions. We'll be starting over soon, and we'll keep starting over, okay? But I can tell you that some of these are so far beyond what we've been taught and where men have focused. All left brain Western education is light years beyond. How can Tony Bazant stand up in front of an audience of people and say, oh, no, the human language is images. The human language is images. The national languages is their individual language. What language do you speak is what, as a human, what nation did you grow up in? That's what that is. But the human language is image. That's just absolutely wonderful. But how much do we live that way? How much do we say, wait a minute, I've reacted. We've done this a little bit before. Let me just go back because we've got a little bit of time here. In Hebrew, there's a massive distinction. You have to be, it's subtle, because I'm telling you, if you read ancient Hebrew and you put mind in, you've already lost it. You can't translate ancient Hebrew where it says heart and say mind and get what it's talking about, because you're going to think intellect. And that's not it at all. It's the exact opposite of intellect. Okay, it's images. Okay, now what's the significance about that? The significance is this left brain prison. The significance is, in fact, Thea and I were in discussion about a situation that we're involved in, asking about a certain person. She asked me, which level of understanding do you think they're on? Level 1, we talked about last week. Level 1 is where somebody hears what is being taught, what's being shared, and they think they can get it because they can repeat a part of it. And they think they got it. I understand. No, they don't. The one that's the most deceptive is the one that can say it exactly right. Repeat it, make an A on every single exam. I got it. I know that I know it, and they know the definitions. They know the words. They don't know the meaning. And it's not truth they've experienced. It's truth that they've got memorized. When we saw Richard Wurmbrand, he's saying, what I did was meditate through the night on verses that I knew by heart. So his intellect had a lot of verses. But when he meditated on the verses he had, suddenly he said, I meditated until I saw. Now the heart's fully engaged. Okay. So I'd say this many, many times. It's amazing how much I can quote accurately that I don't experience. It's amazing. It took me a long time to get suspicious of that, because I thought like everybody else, if I can quote it, I know it. Okay. And so this whole thing about the dangers of the left brain and the left brain ox and its capacity to learn information, memorize words, and think that it knows. So we're going to do something that it's just important. It's important for you to hear. Remember, you're free to disagree, but on this area, I beg you to not disagree fast, because it'll cost you big time. So we're going to look at intellectual metamorphosis. And when I wrote this, it was, you talk about festive joy. When I started writing this and I saw what the Father had done with creation, his sense of humor, it was just, I mean, I absolutely broke out laughing. I couldn't wait to get this written, then to get Thea to just go through it with me and see it, you know, because she's the midwife and she read everything to me to make sure it was right, and I read to her. So lengthy process, but when I wrote this out, I couldn't wait to get there. So let's look at intellectual metamorphosis. In the self-help world, there's no word that became bigger over the last 30 years than the word transformation. There's no metaphor that became bigger than let's talk about butterfly, how we become butterflies, okay? But Deming, that changed the world from Japan, recognized pretty early that in America, companies would pick up his vocabulary and his slogans, and he called it cosmetic. Put on the cosmetics. I'm covering up. I'm acting like I'm prettier than I am. I'm making myself look as good as I can from the outside, but zero change on the inside, none. And he calls it cosmetic. And he warned about what would happen in America that we're in fact tasting the fruit of. This whole thing with China is a massive, massive thing where we let manufacturing get out of the United States out of greed. We let it get to China, let China do it all. And the amount of medicine that they produce, the amount of goods and services they produce, they've got us, okay? And getting extricated is going to take some time, but they've got us because we let too much shift under their control, big time. That's what Deming warned about, okay? All right, so let's look at what this is about. Intellectual metamorphosis. Intellectual metamorphosis is where the vocabulary gets changed. Man, I pick up the new words, even get the new definitions. I even get the new concepts, but the left brain only takes us from crawling to hopping. So this is, when I wrote this, I wrote it as somebody that was a left brain ox. This is a confession. That's what this really was. I wrote out of a confession. Okay. Transformation. The English word for metamorphosis, Greek, is a big N word. Obviously, there's a huge external transformation in technology, economics, and global communication. However, life is internal, not external. The internal global transformation needed and promised and longed for will not take place as long as our schools, our organizations, and our religious institutions approach life with half a brain. Which half? Left half. Once again, the fault lies in the deceptiveness of definitions devoid of meaning. And we said it from the beginning. Definitions are in the head, meanings in the heart. And they are really worlds apart. As we will soon see, genuine transformation has a profound meaning. The lack of meditation on the ancient Hebrew father-son's model has robbed us of our most innate God-given gift. As a result, most of our schools, our organizations, and religious institutions bask in this artificial light of intellectual transformation that's cosmetic and not real. The frogs erroneously call intellectual transformation enlightenment. You got to be real careful when somebody uses the word love. You got to be careful when somebody uses the word peace. You got to be careful when somebody uses the word truth. You got to be careful when somebody uses the word light. You got to be really careful. Are they speaking from the transformation of a frog or the authentic transformation of a butterfly? And I mean, they're going to use the butterfly words. And who are the frogs? Well, now that we know to look to nature for the secrets of life, we know that creation has images that answers this most critical life question. In an overlooked display of our Father's creative sense of humor, and as a parental warning signal, he's provided us with a graphic demonstration of the difference between intellectual and authentic transformation. Left brain mentors recognize the difference between the metamorphosis of a frog and a butterfly. They recognize the difference without personalizing the meaning. From egg to adult, the metamorphosis of a frog demonstrates left brain thinking perfectly. It's sequential, It's objectively visible, and it's labor intensive. Each stage predicts what the next stage is going to be. You get exactly what you expect. A frog. What a stunning revelation that when we lose the experience that a word describes, we lose its meaning. Intellectual transformation by its very nature changes the vocabulary, the definition, and concepts. Left brain instructors masquerade in the symbols. In other words, they use the butterfly words. And they proclaim their sessions transformational. And assured that everyone's enjoyed their serving of flies, they're ready to hop back to work. They unconsciously maintain the status quo that results in uniform ugliness, hopping movement, and a home in the swamp. This is surely the Father's prima facie, in your face laugh at the foolishness of men. Nature's warning signal on the highway of life reads, don't become a frog. Croaking and hopping is no way to live. Intellectual metamorphosis. That's what it's like. So, here's the application. What an image of what it means to be deceived by the intellectual embrace of the word transformation. If we weren't addressing the lost revelation of the heart, claiming being transformed would be easy. However, the more we understand how massive the heart is, how hidden its images and the motives that flow from it, we're less confident that the less confident we are that we know as we ought to know. I suspect that authentic transformation will be what others recognize in us rather than what we tell others about ourselves. Self-exaltation sounds like a frog croaking. So, how many times did you croak this week? How many times did you croak today? Think about it. Is this about you? Don't think so. So you want to do authentic metamorphosis?
Sure, love to. Authentic metamorphosis changes images, meanings, and performance. It is the right brain. It is from crawling to rest to dramatic change to flight. So the metamorphosis of a frog is your father's warning. The metamorphosis of a butterfly is a picture of his grand plan for our lives that result in exquisite beauty, in soaring flight, and a home in the garden. Metamorphosis begins with crawling. No escaping the basics. It's a big step for swamp frogs, monarch butterflies, and for the father's children. Babies crawl, which means we all have to become like little children if we are going to recover the lost language of a birth. Kinesiology reveals that our left-right brain connections, distinctions, and developments require significant crawling activity. I don't know how much I crawled, but if I had known that I was exercising a genius, I would have crawled much more instead of sitting on my butt. I wonder if I have learned my lesson. The Gentle Revolution discovered that crawling is so vital to the development of the genius neural pathways that they placed babies in a room covered with a chicken fire ceiling that forced them to crawl. They had to go to the physiological state of crawling to get the neurological connections between the left and the right brain and the entire body. It is essential. Crawling is exercising the genius. Becoming like little children is an insult to our adult fragile egos and left brain hierarchies, which insist that we have no need to learn to crawl. They lie. Don't listen to their opinions, and instead meditate on the image of the authentic transformation that the Father Mentor has given us. It is not, give us the vocabulary, give us the definitions, give us the strategies, and we'll transform ourselves. That will only enable us to crawl until we get strong enough to hop. And then night after night, we will join our fellow swamp dwellers in a croaking boast of intellectual transformation. Authentic transformation is not sequential, is objectival, not objectival visible, nor is it labor intensive. And the resting stage does not remotely predict what the final stage is going to be. The mystery of authentic metamorphosis is recognizing that we don't know how to do this, and we will never will. The miracle happens away from the soul senses, beyond the reach of logic and reason, and shielded from outside forces. Authentic transformation takes place behind the veil that lies over the heart, the facade of left brain ox, overconfidence, limitation, and blindness. Complete metamorphosis requires rest, not effort. It requires meditation, not sweat. As left brain captives, we have been trained to look at the world backwards and upside down. As monarch butterflies, we intuit a different set of rules. First, we feed on the milkweed where we are born. The left is serving its purpose. It's collecting the dust, the outside data that the heart will mold into a previously unimagined golden cocoon, a sealed vault, and another world's laboratory where creativity occurs. Soon we will instinctively crawl into a tree, grab hold of a branch, and get ready for the left brain caterpillar to disappear. As we turn ourselves inside out, our hearts turn home. We discover the secret place and the lost garden enclosure. It's been there all the time, waiting to set us free. The secret is in the chrysalis, the home of rest, the home of meditation, and the home of authentic transformation. As monarch butterflies, we don't keep crawling to transform ourselves. We rest in the chrysalis while we are being transformed. How? We don't know. But rest assured, monarch butterflies and all who see them love the results. Inside the chrysalis, the image maker is peacefully performing its miracles. The real secret is the image maker, the entrance to the cocoon of our hearts where we experience transformation that will allow us to soar on the wings of the wind. Only way home is by flying. Authentic transformation happens inside the cocoon of our hearts. I always love to think there is nothing that the caterpillar can do to transform itself into a butterfly. If the caterpillar would try to hold on in only something of being a caterpillar, it would never be able to transform into a butterfly. Ever. We can never do this ourselves. We can never do this by our intellect. We can never do this by so-called the misnomer willpower. We can never do it ourselves. It happens only in the cocoon of our hearts.
Hey, why don't you go grab that video and let me just chat about this for a minute while you're doing that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what Jim Lewis was talking about. All of his learning, all of his teaching, all of his teaching. He said to me many, many times, my teaching was always a mile wide and an inch deep, no depth. So how much of our lives changed if we don't get the depth? The depths are the heart, okay? And so, but what he said, I love the way he said it. He said, as I kept meditating on this and I kept studying this, then change started taking place. It wasn't that he was changing, he was being changed, because the sensitivity to, wait a minute, where am I really coming from? Am I really wrong? What do I need to do here? So there's a wonderful, wonderful video that we've got that Thea is going to show us right now. And it's when we get more from the spiritual side, this gets off the chart how significant it is, but still this is really valuable.
If you open the work of a lepidopterist, someone who studies butterflies, somewhere in that writing, you're going to find the language of astonishment.
Every one of these 20,000 species have different color patterns, and every one of them has different shaped wings. The diversity is just so magnificent.
As you watch a butterfly, to describe what you're looking at, you can't really put it into words. That's biology, it's also magic.
It's impossible to look at a caterpillar turning into a butterfly and not ask how. Their metamorphosis, their life cycle, how did this happen? This astonishing, remarkable transformation.
In a metamorphic insect, what you've got is two body plans. You have to first form one functional body plan, and then you have to switch gears and you have to take and form a new body plan. I am amazed by development when it goes from egg to caterpillar, because it's such an intricate process. But then you have to enter into the chrysalis stage and you have to get it right again. So it's like the problem squared.
You've got to get rid of or digest the caterpillar tissues. They won't work for the adult. In fact, the cells themselves disappear, but then their components are recycled and are turned into a kind of soup out of which the adult structures will be built. It's very carefully engineered. So you got to know where you're going to end up before you start.
It's like a different organism. Transitions have to take place in the heart. Transitions have to take place in the antennae. Transitions have to take place in the reproductive organs.
You have to recreate adult legs, adult antennae, adult eyes. You have to change the shape of the brain and the connections between the antennae and the eyes. You have to reformat the gut so that it switches from eating plant material to eating nectar. You begin to see the depths of the problem. So for evolution to have created this sort of pathway gradually, it would take a miracle.
When you see certain effects in nature, it's your responsibility as an investigator to find the cause that will explain the effect. If you saw a mechanical device of the sophistication of a butterfly, you would not for a moment hesitate to ascribe that to intelligence, because the butterfly is so much more sophisticated almost beyond our comprehension than anything that we make. Planning, foresight, artistry, engineering. When you process all the evidence revealed through metamorphosis, and then you ask yourself, in your own experience, what kind of cause could bring about these results? I think the only reasonable answer is an intelligence that transcends the natural world.
Okay, now that's pretty awesome. And once we watch that, then you can understand why we say we don't know how to do this. It's really, really interesting and so typical. I mean, the first time we ever showed this, we had a number of people ask, how do we do it? Even though we just said, we don't know how to do it and you never will. It's the left 100% focus on, wait a minute, give me the rules. I mean, tell me how to do this. Tell me how to do this. So looking to the intuitive, looking to the inner, the whole thing on the gentle revolution, you teach the kids the rule, you teach the kids the facts, and they intuit the rules. They never took these children and taught them how to read by rules. They never taught them how to do math by rules. They never taught, they intuit the rules. That's genius in the inside. Say, just give me the facts, make them clear, make them precise. They got to be true. They got to be simple. They got to be repeated, and I will do the stuff with it. The genius will do the stuff with it. It's the same thing. And we've all got it on the inside as we were birthed with it. We learned at warp speed as children, absolute warp speed. And we've never learned as fast since. We left the image maker. As quick as our family got us to words, words are really, really important. I mean, the Father designed words to have the role they do, but the words are seed. They're not the reality. They're the seed. That's what words are. Words are really, 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 really misunderstood and dealt with as definition. If we don't know the words, just like what did we say? Michael Bazant say, I'm going to give you a fact. I'm going to give you a piece of data, and you tell me what you get. Mango. And then he says, did you get the word and spell it out? No. Everybody in the audience, he said, I've done it with thousands. Everybody gets a picture. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is what's so wonderful about the process. The process is one that never stops. Once we turn toward home, make it turn, then we're saying, I've got to be much more suspicious of why I do what I do. I got to be much more careful to not be judgmental and condemning of other people for what they do. I've got to be appreciative and understand that I get behind faces and I don't see somebody as an enemy, just automatic and instantaneous. It's one of the things as part of the culture that you're going to have to be really patient with us, because we got a culture of left brain oxygen. I'm talking about in our company, we got a culture of left brain oxygen. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It simply means this: to do what we need to do, what all of us need to do, we need to start in the heart of the consumer. And that's the number one thing we looked at. And as I've tried to share with everybody, when you look at the name of a customer, it's not the ideal customer. You don't say, well, this is who our customer is, and you define it. You experience him, you don't define him. And when you do, you're going to find out there's a lot of strange people. Okay. And there are people that are hurt. There are people that are wounded. There are people that are confused. There are people that are in fear. That's what's in the heart of people. And from a marketing standpoint, I've said this for 3 or 4 weeks. An incredible way for you to start every single conversation with anybody about what we're doing is to say, well, let them talk about what their experience is, because we already know chaos is on the inside. because I've known chaos was on the inside of people since 1990, and that's before all this stuff. I hope everybody's hearing me. 9 out of 10 people from 1990 forward, when I said, if you could use one word to describe the world we live in today, what one word would you choose? 9 out of 10 have given me chaos since 1990. What do you think it is now? It's way beyond chaos. It's panic. Fear of the future has never been greater on this planet as a whole than it is right now. Never. Okay? Well, if I know that, then can I mark it to the heart? If I'm doing it in integrity and I believe that what I'm doing is really something that would be good for the person, not manipulation. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm talking about insight. Then I can say, you know, like most people, my heart's been overwhelmed by the chaos and my fear of the future until I enrolled in quantum supremacy. And now I have more hope than I've ever had before. Those words are so powerful because you're activating. The minute you say the chaos, you've already activated inside. They can't mango. They can't. When you say the chaos and been overwhelmed, you don't have to do anything. You just said mango, and they see mango. When you say the chaos, bam, they know exactly what you're talking about. And I don't mean here. Their heart knows. And my fear of the future, bam, they mango. It's just like that. And then we can say, until I enrolled in quantum supremacy, and now I have more hope than I've ever had before. Whoa, you know what everybody in chaos and everybody with fear of the future is absent of? Hope. Now, what we covered today is just loaded with that from a marketing standpoint. It's totally loaded, because when Thea went through anxiety and what that is and what it produces in the bloodstream and what that really is and what you're bowing down to. I mean, when Thea and I first looked at this and saw this word means, what are you bowing down to? I wish you could have been sitting there with us. It hit us just incredible. You mean that my soul, my personality is bowing down before those images and controlled by those images, and my soul's not getting a vote? Your soul doesn't get a vote. When the what? When the head and the heart are in conflict, the heart wins every time. So this has huge ramifications from that standpoint. I'd like to close with doing one more that will change your life and change mine the more we get comfortable with it. And the more we get comfortable with it, the more freedom we get. So we're going to talk about 3 words that can change everything. Now, I've done this for years. In fact, I started many, many seminars by saying, just to make sure that we're talking to the right people here. I mean, we've come in, you've driven in, you've flown in, you paid a lot of money to get here, and I appreciate you being here. And we're going to be here for 5 hours. We're going to be here for 6 hours. But let me make sure I'm talking to the right people. So how many of you would like to know 3 words that can change relationships? 3 words that can overcome the past. 3 words that are 3 of the most powerful words that you've ever heard. How many would you like to know those words? Well, hands would go up everywhere. But then I would ask, what do you think those words are? Jim Lewis and I was doing this not long ago, and I couldn't keep from laughing. And I wasn't trying to pick on the person. I mean, the biggest foolish person that I know is the one I shave. Okay, I don't know anybody that's been more to the left. Okay, Heart of the Fools to the left. Ask how many foolish things I've done in my life. But somebody said, I love you. That's what most people said, 3 words. I love you. And I said, that's not it. And a woman said, I know, I forgive you. Oh, me, the height of left brain arrogance and self-centeredness. And she was as serious as she could be. I forgive you. You ready, Thea? Okay, let's go. And is it on the end of what you sent me?
Yes.
Because I need to do. I'd already shut it down. Let me get back in here. Okay. So if you've not been here, you might ask yourself if you know what that is. But this is it. It's not I love you, and it's not I forgive you. It's not I forgive you. It's I was wrong. Will you forgive me? It's not I forgive you. Oh my. Now this is an incredible place. This is so wonderful. I have not liked this insight right here. I've not liked it. And I've not liked it because it is so indicting of me and my lack of capacity to be who I'm supposed to be, most with my wife, because she's the one that gets exposed to me the most, right? But it's just the reality of what happens, and I'm having to open back up, and I'll be right there in just a minute. This is so liberating. Well, I'm going to try to do it another way, see if I can get there faster. Yeah. I'm almost there. I've loved this session, folks. It's really, really something. Okay. I was wrong. We've not really thought about anything until we think about what we've thought. Ponder that. We've not really thought about anything until we think about what we thought, how to think without thinking. See, our thoughts are basically previous programming. It's not thinking. We're only really thinking when we think about what we thought. Is what I thought true, or is what it not true? So here's an incredible statement. No one knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of a man which is in him. That's just straight quote from the big book. No one knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of a man which is in him, which means real thinkers frequently say, I was wrong. The rediscovery of the heart reveals that most of what we call thinking is not thinking at all. It's the reaction of previous programming. We've really not thought about anything until we think about what we've thought. Since the 1990, the introduction to the seminar has been with this promise. If you will repeat a phrase out loud with me, I'll give you 3 of the most powerful words ever spoken. Words guaranteed to create immediate agreement. How would you like to have immediate agreement with somebody that you don't have agreement with? Establish trust and change lives over and over again if uttered sincerely. Okay, is everybody ready? Let's all say together, I was wrong. Ready? I was wrong. Watch the reactions. I mean, you're up on stage with me, okay? Watch the reaction. There's smiles. There's frowns, and there's blank stares. Some of the smiles mean, I get it. Others means, you're joking. The frown means, I'm not saying that. The blank stares either mean, I don't understand, or my mouth can't even shape those words. Often the verbal response from the audience would hardly be called a sound. And it's me, and I say, wow, How interesting. So let's try that again with full voice. This time, it's only a game. You're not really wrong. You're just rehearsing the words and the rare possibility that someday you might be wrong. Okay, full voice, let's go. I was wrong. Except for a few really fragile egos, a full voice rehearsal follows with laughter. The truth is, if I'm not aware of being wrong more than 4 or 5 times a day, I've had a really good day. And my awareness is not a true indicator of how many times I was actually wrong. I'm amazingly easy on myself. If we recognize that much of what we call thinking is only previous programming, including the words that accompany the images, we move to life on another plane. From this new vista, we see how easy it is to think about what we thought. The real you, the eternal you, the spirit you can see that what we first thought was from a closed heart, blinded by previous programming or a reaction from a blind spot which cannot be trusted. In either case, we're empowered to acknowledge I was wrong to everyone impacted by our mistake or our reaction. We spend a lifetime trying to prove ourselves right. It's time to discover that actually I was wrong is often the most liberating thing we can possibly say. These words work at home, at work, or at play. They have instant impact with individuals or groups, with parents or children or siblings. The mysterious power of I was wrong disappeared centuries ago when blinded hearts and fragile egos found it impossible to express this liberating truth. W. Edwards Deming, the revered father of the Japanese economic recovery and the quality control movement, changed the world with a massive right brain paradigm shift in the correct way to use the left brain ox command of data to monitor the right brain line's creative theory in order to achieve constant improvement. This is what Theo said at the beginning. The left and the right both are essential in the proper road. The Deming method requires, listen to this carefully, a never-ending cycle. Plan. Use the image maker to form new pictures of what could be. Plan. That's not, to him, devoid of the image maker saying, here's an idea, let's do this. Then go build a new model. Study. That's where the ox kicks in. Use hard data to determine results. Don't let your ego get involved in interpreting what the results mean. You'll only be deceived if you want to read into the results what you want to read in or make an excuse for what you still believe. You have to let the data prove itself. Study. Let's use hard data to determine the results, and then act. Implement what was proven to improve performance. Act on that. Oh, are you ready for the last one? And it's absolutely essential. Find out what's wrong. That's what a pre-launch is all about, is finding out all the things that are wrong. All the things that are wrong. So by the time we launch, hopefully we will have covered the vast majority of things that we found out that were wrong. That's why it's for paradigm pioneers. The weak can never be part of a pre-launch because they want the pre-launch to be like the launch, and it can never be. All right. Now, this is what Deming says. Start over. Deming says a scientist's highest responsibility is to prove himself wrong. Does everybody hear that? It's extremely embarrassing for a scientist to go out and put something in place knowing that his peers are going to start trying to replicate what he did and to be proven wrong. So what if we've been taught this powerful truth from birth? rather than the deadly, I'm not wrong counterfeit. I'm not wrong. I can't afford to say I was wrong. I mean, come on. All my life I've been trying to prove that I'm not wrong. People are trying to tell me I can't handle saying I was wrong. No, if you learn to say you was wrong before somebody else says it to you, boy, that's living from the inside. That's what conscious says. That's what spirit says. You said that to Kim, and you said it in the wrong spirit, which means what? You got to get up and you got to go and you got to say, I need you to forgive me. I reacted. And I tell you what I've had to do. Some of you won't like this. Maybe 10% of you might. When you say you were wrong, you never say you were wrong in order to reinitiate the conversation. And you never say that you were wrong with an expectation that Thea's going to say she's wrong too. If I'm the one that's wrong and I'm asking Thea to forgive me, all I need from her is one thing. I forgive you. That's all. And don't let people rescue you. I tell you, people will try to rescue you. They'll say, yeah, well, I understand that. Anybody would have done the same thing. I'm not talking about what anybody would do. I'm trying to get free. So don't rescue me. Just say, I forgive you. Now, that's what I was talking about. So I was wrong is a secret key to instant relief. Now, I've done seminars where I would always do this first in the morning, what we've just covered. Thea, let's come back because it's time for us to go here. Can you kill? Yeah, good. There you go. Okay. Many times I would do a seminar and I would have somebody at lunchtime come to me, sometimes with tears in their eyes, sometimes with festive joy, where they got somebody that they were in the room with and they went outside and they got it straightened. And sometimes where people made a phone call to somebody they had not spoken to in 20 years and said, I need to ask you to forgive me, I was wrong. Amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. And it's been really, really good to have you here. I'm just seeing anything here that we need to. Shabbat Shalom, that's a good one. All right, thank you. Everybody have a great day and a great week. Let's keep telling our wonderful story to everybody we can. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.